This episode of the Survivor 50 Files is brought to you by our friends over at Manta Sleep. Summertime is officially here. The days are longer, the sun is brighter, and while all of that extra daylight can feel energizing, it can quickly sabotage your sleep. Later sunsets disrupt your body's circadian rhythm, making it harder to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up feeling refreshed. That's where Manta Sleep comes in. Whether you're blocking out daylight or tuning out the sounds of summer nights, taking control of your sleep environment helps you get deep, restorative rest, no matter how long the sun stays up. I love this sleep mask. When we looked for a sponsor for this podcast, they were the first company that I jumped to. I bought one of these during COVID. I was sleeping very poorly. I had a lot of anxiety. This doubled the quality of my sleep. I am loyal to it, and I've been influencing for this way longer than this podcast. Visit the Manta Sleep website and use our discount code 50files. That's 50 FILES for 10% off your order. Discount code is 50files, 50 FILES. Let's get to the show. What is going on, everybody? Brandon Donlon here with another episode of the Survivor 50 Files. And we're talking Chrissy Hofbeck from Heroes, Healers, and Hustlers, which is still hard to say. That season came on in 2017. It's still hard to say. I am joined by a great friend of mine, somebody who I've never gotten to do this with, and I'm so thrilled. It's Kellyn Bechtold. Kellen, how are you?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Hi. It's so fun to be here with you today and get to hang out, talk a little bit Survivor, a little bit of Road to Reality, maybe a little bit of all the things. So I'm really excited to be here today and to just get to exchange words with you. I actually put on my Ponderosa shirt. This is the shirt I wore at Ponderosa. And I was just getting in the mood. It's hot. It's 90 degrees. It's summertime. It's Survivor off season. And it's some season 50 contestants, maybe Chrissy Hofbeck, maybe not, are at Ponderosa right now. So we will see.
We'll see. So this is the first episode of the Survivor 50 Files where our guest, Kellen, has not played with Chrissy. They have a good relationship. They talk to each other. And let me tell you, if you're on the Heroes, Healers, Hustlers cast, you're so hard to reach. I don't know where you are in the world. It is not a group that is involved with the Survivor community, which is so interesting, Colin, because half of your Ghost Island cast is also so removed. And I feel like you guys are the last Survivor casts that are like that, where it's just like everybody's OTG. They're off the grid.
Yeah, I have a theory on this, which is not necessarily based on any fact. I'll be interested to see what your
We like those. We like those theories.
I'll be interested to see what because you would have been a fan back in the day, fan only at the time. And I get the sense that casting, because this was right before Lynn was ousted, right? So I forget, when was she ousted? Like at
I think
40?
her last season was 38. I believe.
Okay. So I think, this is my theory, that Lynn decided she wanted to go like Love Island casting, like reality TV people, not necessarily Survivor fans. And so 35 and 36 were like the peak of that era in casting, which was like people who did not know about Survivor, people who did not watch the show. There were some people who did. Obviously, there are fans, Chrissy being one of them, had been applying for years and years and years, but like JP and all these people who, I don't know why I picked him out, but like Jenna Bowman from my season, like none of these people I don't think were super Survivor fans. And so it makes sense that because they went into it through the casting process of like, let's do reality TV stars, they may or may not became TV stars after. It makes sense to me that the tie to Survivor doesn't feel as close as some of the later seasons here in the new era, where it seems like most people are not recruits. I think that's the word.
When you're in the pregame for Ghost Island, can you get like an aura from the people who are the recruits? Can you tell? Like I think in my season, most, if not all of us had applied for the show. I'm pretty sure all of us. Were you getting a vibe from people that like they maybe did not know as much as you did about the show as a whole?
Definitely, like you like make that up about what you think about who's the recruit. It's so funny too, because I think some people like lied on whether or not they were recruited, because like being recruited was like a bad word back in the day. Like, it was a bad thing if you were recruited for the show. And so people weren't even completely forthright on whether or not they applied. But even for the people who did apply, I think it may have just been people who got through who were interested in being on the platform of Survivor, but not necessarily super in love with the game of Survivor. I do not get the sense that Chrissy is one of those people.
No, Chrissy applying for 16 years. I went
Yeah.
back and I watched a few episodes. I watched her, as you did also, Kellen. You watched her confessional compilation on YouTube, which is very great. She says in a few confessionals over the course of the season, every year for 16 years, she was trying to get on the island. What does it mean for you, do you think, if you can put yourself in Chrissy's shoes? She's trying for now for 16 years, and now, almost 10 years after that, she's back. She's doing
Yeah.
it again.
Yeah, I cannot. First of all, I can't imagine. The only thing I know, because I applied, I essentially, when I got the call to talk in person, I made it all the way through casting and on the show. So I applied 1 year, just got the written thing back, never heard from anybody, applied again a year later, and then made it on the show. So I was very lucky that my timing worked out. And so I cannot imagine what it would be like, except for Brendan Shapiro from our season is very much the same as Chrissy, had applied that many years, finally gets to go out there. The pressure of that, first and foremost, I think would be beyond. Like, if the dream had been for so long, I think the pressure would feel higher for people who had applied that many times and tried to get through so many times. And then she did it. And then she had this massive experience, did so well on her first season. I would think that if I were Chrissy, like, the dream would have never died for how far she made it, for how long she applied, she finally made it on, how close she was, how the end of H blah blah blah
Yeah.
ended. I bet she has always kind of felt that. Not that when I talked to her on Road to Reality, I think she felt like she had a really great experience, but I did get the sense that there were some things that were left to be determined. And so I imagine that she feels like she has these final loose ends that she'd really like to tie up this trip back.
What's so interesting is the whole season 50 casting process has been now for what, 9 months. And Chrissy was never on my radar to come back. Like, it was a passing thought. If she felt like one of the folks who, there's the class of people from season 35, including your season, to 39, where they kind of missed the boat in terms of returning season, as 40 is all winners. But then Jeff starts doing interviews. He's on a press tour, season 48. He's mentioned in season 50, and he keeps bringing up Chrissy. Chrissy
Really? I
came
didn't know
up in
this. Fill
3
me in. Fill me
interviews.
in on the tea.
In one of the interviews that I'm remembering, he's doing somebody's handing him like note cards and asking Survivor questions. And I think the fire making challenge came up, and then he's like, yeah, Chrissy's still mad at me for this or something. I'm getting the quote wrong, but he mentions that like they've recently had a conversation. And then I'm like, oh my God, I guess they're calling Chrissy. And when you think about Chrissy's archetype, there wasn't anybody that I had super thought was getting that call. So it does make sense that Chrissy's there. But I'm thrilled that Chrissy gets another shot to play Survivor, because Chrissy's unlike really, I think, anybody that's played Survivor in the last 10 or 15 years, where, you have a Cass who goes in, and Cass is, pitched as the mom, and then Cass is super lethal. And there's I don't know what it is, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. And like, Cass and Chrissy are different. There's a different way that they go about like their lethalness, but I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is?
Mm. Let me think through this here. I think that they're equally calculated, um, in their strategery. They're
Strategic.
equally calculated in probably like in their profession, like they're professional women, corporate women. They come in, they seem equally calculated. I think that Cass, maybe in her, as things get hungrier and things get more out of control, I think Cass probably unwound into more emotional than Chrissy did, actually, even though maybe some people would think that Cass comes across as harder and more direct. Chrissy, to me, as time went on, she really kept her shit together. She really stayed in when things weren't going her way. I just watched like the replay of all of her confessionals, like there are many things going wrong and stacked against her. And I saw her stay in curiosity and like understanding that things are people relationships versus Cass really wants to crunch the numbers harder. And I think Chrissy wants to get closer to people and understand them better. So Chrissy's drive to be able to understand people to get her strategy complete seems a little bit further than maybe Cass is going to crunch the numbers. I don't know. What's your take on that?
No, I agree with all of that. And it's like, it's a testament to Chrissy that like Chrissy enters on her tribe of heroes. You know how actuaries and everybody's a hero, a firefighter, an actuary, a lifeguard, Alan Ball, like everybody's a hero, which is awesome. She enters that tribe. She is not feeling great, ends up on the top of that tribe before the swap. She gets on a swap tribe. She's at the bottom. She's at the top of the swap at the merge. Enters the merge at the bottom, and then leaves the game really on in one of the top positions and kind of masterminds herself around until like mid game. You know, it becomes kind of a chase to get out Ben, and then Ben has an idol every round. You know, this is not. You know, this is a season that I feel like I know the least about. I don't know why that is, because I was so engaged on Ghost Island. I was so engaged in Dave vs. Goliath, even Game Changers. I can kind of, you know, get my way around. And I don't know what it was about Heroes, Healers, Hustlers. Maybe it's the name during the season where I just felt a little bit more disengaged. But going back and revisiting, it's so interesting to see this person who I think will fit in with New Era Survivor in a way that like more so than the old era Survivor.
Oh, 1,000%. Like even more, I think even more so than the pace of the game for Colby, Suri, these folks who coach, like, which are interesting. I mean, I don't know about Ozzy, but she definitely has the capacity. Like when you hear her speak in confessionals, it is a very New Era coded, moving people around, playing it like a game of chess, seeing what's going to happen, thinking multiple I think she even says like, I'm partnering with Ben because he has more social pull than I do, and he's more charming, and I can see the game multiple steps ahead, which is very, to me, New Era coded. Also, side note, I think Chrissy's self-awareness was off the charts in her first round of play, and I think that's going to help her out a lot in season 50 as well.
Well, people, Kellen, and I know you've seen this on Twitter. People call New Era Survivor like corporate Survivor. Everybody's giving corporate, and I think Chrissy's giving corporate. I think
But
Chrissy
Chrissy is
fits
corporate.
in. Chrissy's corporate. Chrissy's giving corporate because she is literally corporate. She operates herself in a way that is very much like, you know, somebody higher up at your, you know, at your company who then they want to own the company, and that is
Yeah.
how they kind of go about those stages.
Yeah, she
Whereas
literally wrote a book, which is actually very, very good, called Winning Conditions: How to Survive, how to get the best out of what your best is, and how to carry yourself in the world to create winning conditions, to climb the ladder, to get what you want, to create the business you want, to win the interview you want. It's a great read. I love it. And I really hate most corporate books. I think it's a good mix of
yeah.
I think it's a good mix of that. So yeah, I think that makes sense. And yes, I agree that of the old schoolers, if us 30s are now considered, or whatever we call new era, whatever we consider, it's like old
I
school,
think
new
new
school,
school, yeah,
of us new schoolers, I think she has a very good chance of crossing the boundary into new era play.
you know, it's funny. I just recorded an episode early. Kelly, now Bandian, and I talked about D, and Julie Alley, who is, you know, Julie Alley and Chrissy know each other, have communicated, are friendly, and you know, on paper, D really likes to tag in with that archetype, and if they're on a tribe together, that sounds pretty good. I can see the natural kind of going against each other.
Mm.
I'm sorry, going with each other.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know. I can see Dee and Chrissy really pairing up. So yes.
I'm curious who you think Chrissy will not get along with. Is there anybody that
Mm.
jumps out to you on the list that is like, maybe not?
Honestly, I think, and this is why I love Chrissy for this season, is I think Chrissy is able to withstand any relationship to get what she wants.
Yeah.
I think she is really good at playing the game of uh you know how when you're in a boardroom or you're in a meeting or whatever, you're in an interview and you're like, I guess corporate, but like you have that veil of, oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I love that. Oh, you like to sail. I like to sail too. Like this willingness to be a chameleon, to meet people where they are, I think puts Chrissy in a great position to go far in this game again. I don't think there is anyone that is going to annoy Chrissy out of her strategy. You put Kellen
That's
on the beach with Coach, I get annoyed out of my strategy, right? If you put Kellen, if you put me out there with certain people, I am annoyed out of my ability to stay in control and stay strategic. I don't think Chrissy's moving in that sense. So I don't know that there is one person who Chrissy cannot be willing to chameleon into working with. I think that puts her in a potential space to control the group of outsiders, if there are any on this season.
Yeah. Can I ask you? You don't have to name the name, but did you feel annoyed on Ghost Island? Did people like annoy you?
Oh, yes, I think is a very open. Chris Noble annoyed me very
Oh,
much.
sure.
Dom very much annoyed me on I had to call and apologize to Dom for the last podcast I did because I was mean and I don't want to be mean about Dom. Dom is my closest friend
He's
from
the
Ghost
best. He's the
Island
best
now.
guy.
So I love Dom. He annoyed me out there for sure. Definitely Chris Noble. I think that's it. I think it was those two. I mean, and like Chris Noble to a T. I mean, Chris Noble patted me on the head, and it just
Oh,
his favorite. If women didn't have to work, we wouldn't need takeout restaurants. Hooters is his favorite restaurant because he doesn't only just want to eat the wings. I mean, these kinds of things did not work well with me. Looking back, going with Chris Noble and not being annoyed out of my strategic lane would have put me in a greater spot in Ghost Island. There was,
sure.
at the earliest point for me to defect from the Navidi Strong thing would have been to go with the Chris Noble contingency. No way. I was annoyed out of that. I think Chrissy Hofbeck of all people, especially I think of all people, not gendered, is in the best place to not be bothered by those sorts of things if there are any.
I think anybody who's in that corporate line of work like Chrissy is like can, take feedback. And I
Mm,
think that in her first season, I mean, she gets to the final three. And I think that there is this, if you read Exit Press and you follow the story, like if she's at the final three and Ben isn't there, I don't think that she wins. I think it's tight, but I still don't think she wins. It seems like from everything I've read, it might be Devin. Um, and every exit press that you can read, which some of them from that jury, not super nice to Chrissy. Like I think that is feedback that she is taken because
yeah,
if
what
you're
is
in
it?
a professional
What
field,
does it say in the can you give me for lack of better, like, I mean, can you give me the highlights of what the negative press was on her? Like what was her cast saying about her in that exit press?
and again, I don't want to get anything super incorrect, but I believe there was some sentiment that the women of that group weren't super thrilled with how they felt like they were being communicated with by Chrissy, which
Yep.
I don't think that is. And again, it's not my place to
Yeah.
say, of course. I don't know if that's something that is inherently Chrissy's personality or that is situational.
Yeah.
That might be something that is something that if you
So
have 9 years
they didn't
to
like
reflect,
her
they didn't
ultimately,
like her.
right? They didn't like her. They didn't feel like they liked her. I mean, I always say that Survivor is a likability contest. We can go into all these ifs, whats,
Certainly.
wherefores. Like ultimately, the person who wins Survivor is the person who people like the most, and that I would say is across the board. Sometimes we look back and we think, how was that person the person that they liked the most,
Yeah.
right? How was that? But in the moment when they cast the vote and write down a name for $1 million, no one is giving that money to somebody that I mean, 99% of people are not giving money to the people that they don't like. So here's the thing with Chrissy, looking back, and this is more of a societal like discussion, I think. But in looking back and seeing Chrissy's all of her confessionals in one spot, one after the other, the way she talks about people and the way they show her some of the interactions with people is very masculine, very direct, very clear, very masculine in nature. And so while she is a chameleon, she is not a oh, I'm gonna fold, and do you like me? And she's not someone who's out there trying to like get giggles and, gifts. That is not what Chrissy does. Chrissy was there, and I think she genuinely cares about people, but I don't think that she was doing a very good job of playing the game of life as far as friendship and that sort of thing. Now,
Yeah.
ultimately, do you have to have that to get $1 million in a first season? Yeah, probably. Now we see Tony, he was kind of an abnormal win first time around. Second time around, nobody is seeing Tony as like oh, give me hugs and I love him and he's so sweet, right? I think in these returnee seasons, there's more of a space to be rewarded for your survivor play and not just for being somebody who's trying to make everyone feel loved and liked. And so I think that puts Chrissy in a better position the second time around as she goes through and is more she doesn't and in a world like can we just leave gender behind, absolutely, but in this like energetic things that are masculine in energy and feminine in energy, like I just do not see her as someone who is like flipping her hair and blinking her eyelashes and like, oh my god, we should go shopping and get our nails done after this. And sometimes people don't like that in women. And so I do think she has that mountain to overcome where she is not going to present like a traditional girl's girl. And, but when you look at the women who are on this cast, I don't think it's a group of women who demand a girly girl. And so I think that will be fun to watch Chrissy and the other women on this season play out when they don't have to be in that trope of girly girl.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's interesting. And I wonder if that also, like, the casting at the time, I think about, like, Trey Plotnicki, who was on the Squid Game, and then he goes and does the show Battle Camp, which is on Netflix. And Trey was kind of, I want outcasted is maybe the wrong word, but he's the only one playing with, like, high-level strategy on this game of people from Netflix shows where there is no strategy entailed. Not to say the people in Heroes, Healers, Hustlers did not have strategy. However, I think Chrissy was maybe playing the genius while everybody is playing Survivor, which sometimes doesn't, sometimes it works. But I think sometimes you get a group that is more on a different wavelength. But good news for Chrissy is that she's now on a group where everybody wants to win. And I think that
Yeah.
there's the theme of doing these podcasts is there's so many egos that are going into this. And I think that with work, like Chrissy can kind of, you know, backseat hers a little bit because she knows that she's smart because she is, right? She knows that
Mhm.
she can is
Yeah.
capable of maneuvering votes because she can and did. But there's so many egos that are going into this season that I don't think wanna put that in the back seat because they view this as like, their time. Whereas,
Yeah.
I think a great survivor skill to have is to be able to backseat and let somebody else drive a vote or let somebody else make that decision because in 2 rounds you're safe and you can then
Yeah.
make that decision.
And
Whereas I
she does
think
seem like she has an ability to pace, maybe.
for
Her
sure.
ability to pace can control her ego in this mountain of egos.
Yes, oh my god. Ego's not good to have in Survivor, I think. I think that the lack of ego I just talked about Mike White, which hasn't come out yet. Spoilers. We're gonna be talking about Mike White in a couple days. And I think Mike White coming in multimillionaire, coming in successful writer, coming in, with a esteemed career, shows up on this Goliath beach and is kind of just, making jokes about it. Like he in his Emmy speech, he talks about how he wants to lower his threat level in Hollywood because he wants to keep playing, if you will. He likens his creating of his show to Survivor. And he's like, I want to keep doing this. I don't want to be the biggest. I just want to keep playing. And I think that having that skill is necessary when you're in a group of 23 people who, and this, Kellen, is like there's 700 people they could have picked for season 50. You know what I mean? And it's like we picked 24 of them. And I think your older era, your Colbys, your Stephanies, you're like, oh, this is my time. Whereas everybody thinks it's their time. But it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
people are shot out of a cannon because they get so in their head of like, oh, this is it. And Chrissy can sit back and watch it happen.
Yeah. I think she has an actuary, right? I've never been an actuary, but I think that it's taking in all of the data pieces, like from a 360-degree view, and really having a realistic expectation for where you are how people, maybe not how people are seeing you from a social standpoint, but like where you sit in the pecking order. And yeah, I just think Chrissy's in a great spot here. I had a really hard time choosing between a Genevieve win or a Chrissy win. I did ultimately make Genevieve my winner pick, but Chrissy was right up there with me, especially because, like you said, you didn't think about her being on the. I definitely did, because all of the people who I would have brought back if I got to choose my returnee season would be so many people in the 30s, because that's when, obviously, that's when I was in high school, not literal high school. That was like, it's like when I was in Survivor School. That was my crew. So I definitely had Chrissy top of mind. But to me, it's like Chrissy and Dom were, the number one guy and gal that I would have wanted to see back. So it's just going to be really interesting to see how it plays out. And the likability factor is totally different in this returnee season, like you've so eloquently pointed out.
Where's Dom in this group? I'm just having the thought now. Where's he at?
I mean, Dom is living a beautiful life with his amazing kids and wife, and he's just doing the most beautiful backyard pool I think I've ever seen. It's like an oasis. Like Dom's is lifing, and the Abate family is gorgeous and fantastic and doing all the things. Why he is not at the top of this list, admittedly, I am biased, but to literally be the closest to have never won, the closest, do not win. Like, how did he not get this season 50 slot? I do not know. I think it's a total miss. He's great TV. He's hilarious. He's strategic. He has an ability to make friends with a lot of people and to also rub some people the wrong way, even though he's a great guy. And so I don't know. I can't believe it. They totally missed the mark here.
It's, he's one of the only people that I've met in person that I feel like has an aura. Like there's like, and it's not that he's like gaming per se, but he carries such a presence wherein like, like your high school, like I say about the new era, like every new era person's like somebody you went to high school with. It's just like, we're all seeing each other, whatever. But Dom just feels so Survivor to me. He feels like a guy who should be, if I just saw him in the street, I would be like, oh my God, you got to go in Survivor. Like he has that about him. Is there anybody else that you were shocked is not here on this cast?
Let me think. I don't think, honestly, I just thought he has been a lock this whole time. No, I have to come back. Sorry. I don't have anyone off the top of my head other than him.
Listen, I am excited as Chrissy's now returning for the option that we all voted on to not have the fire making anymore, which I think maybe that's why Jeff brought her up in that interview. But I do think the fire making controversy that ultimately brings Ben to the end and Ben wins over Chrissy, whatever. Like, I think that's great for Chrissy. I think that's a great story to set up Chrissy's next time. Whereas if there's not that and they vote off Ben and then Chrissy goes to the end and Chrissy does lose, I don't think it's that same story or that same fire, for lack of a better word, in Chrissy to then go back and
35
play.
was the first time they did it, right?
It was the first time they did it. And Chrissy wins the immunity that then reveals an hour before tribal council, you're going to make fire, which still bad. You hate that. We all hate that, right? You're not in on that.
Yeah. I mean, we would have found out about it, that it happened, right? Because they would have just finished that season. We come into Fiji. Jeff is telling us how it's going to go down. So that's how we learned about fire making, was at Ponderosa. We learned before the game started that it was going to happen and that they had done that in the season. Well, I don't even think they told us that they had done that in the season before. Maybe they did. I forget.
How much of the merge strategy was then dictated by that Final Four? Was that top of mind for everybody?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, maybe Dom and Wendell, who were actually like playing and winning the game. I mean, we talked about it somewhat, but I didn't make it that far. Let's just put it that way.
I really thought, this is something that I've said to now all my friends, when the first initial calls went out for Survivor 50. And again, I'm not saying anything that isn't public knowledge of, like, I know people who got the call, who were there. I thought for a long time it was a duos season of Survivor. I thought they were calling dynamic duos. It's not heroes versus villains. It's not all winners, but it's a fun thing for 50. And Dom and Wendell would have been back out there. One of the most
Yeah,
famous
yeah. I mean,
ones.
I think Wendell's had his time, right? Maybe, but that would have been fun, dynamic duos.
I really thought it for a while. I was bummed that that wasn't it. But we got a great theme, right? This theme's cool that we got. It's just everybody. Everybody's here.
I don't really love I feel like the theme is missing. I feel like there were so many options to go with. Like you said, dynamic duos. I feel like there could have been pre-merge, merge, final tribal. I feel like there could have been um new era, old school, new era. I think there could have been so many cool ways to like set this up from a place that really encompassed out loud what the theme of it. I mean, take it back to Heroes, Healers, Hustlers, right? Like in some ways, we don't like to say it, but you can remember who was on a starting tribe and who in new era. I'm sorry, but I can barely remember come the merge who was on what
Mhm.
tribe because it's just a color and a random name. And so I think going back to that era at that time of it is these people versus these people versus these people, first boots or whatever, first boots versus last out, first out versus last. I mean, there's so many ways we could have brought in the game of Survivor. So I would give this an F on the thing. I feel like the votes with the hands of the fans was like, okay, we can talk about it, but who really cares? So I'm pretty Debbie Downer on the way it all sorted out, just because there was so much gold that could have happened that got left on the table.
I think, yeah, and again, you've heard me muse about this if you're listening for many, many weeks. But the in the voting in the hands of the fans is like, I wouldn't write in voting. Like, let me like tell you what we want. Like I said this on Tyson's recap podcast, which is like, if you have all these people across the country, across the world who are watching the show, who are like, oh, I have an idea for an advantage that would be fun. Like, let me write it in. Let me tell somebody, you know what I mean? And let's
Yeah.
see, this guy, he's an accountant and he lives in Des Moines. Like, let's see his advantage that he thought of. I
Yeah,
think
what did
that's like
Chris from Des
fun.
Moines think about what this idol could do or whatever?
Yeah,
Fine. I mean, I still like I don't love that stuff. So
sure.
but yes, I would prefer that over rights or no rights or which immunity necklace are we going to use and blah blah blah.
You have done the Road to Reality podcast on the Rob is a podcast network for a couple seasons, wherein you've heard now so many stories of folks who are almost on an all-star season and then they get clipped at the last second, or they end up on the all-star season and then it doesn't go great. What do you think the all-star season represents for everybody who's played Survivor?
Oh my gosh. Wow. Um it's really interesting because it has been so long, right? It's been, please correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know anything about Survivor. But we had season 40 and now season 50 and there were no repeats in between.
Yeah, we had Bruce on my show who was
Oh,
out
yes.
first
Okay,
and then
Bruce.
Bruce.
Okay,
But
that's right. Thank
otherwise,
you.
the
Thank you for
Bruce
that correction.
exception is that it.
So that is such a long stretch, which really changed the ball game in its own way. I can speak to it in the 30s, which is when there were returnee seasons every couple cycles, and people going back. And I was in the midst of that. I was in the midst of getting calls. I got calls for 38, right? 38 had a couple of returnees.
Yes.
Yes. So I got called for 38 and 40 before it was all winners, obviously. So in that time when all you can every single person who gets out of Survivor, at least I can say for Ghost Island and many, 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 many people I've talked to since, at that time, it was you get voted off, you get your torch snuffed, you go to Ponderosa, and immediately you're like, Jeff said this at Tribal, Matt said this afterwards. Like, this, I'm going to get to play again because XYZ. Like, that is everyone's addiction. There's a few exceptions, but 75% of people are playing out the scenarios of how do I get back on that island and get it. I mean, it is so strong. The pull is so strong. And because it was happening every few seasons, it really felt like there was a ton of chance for you to go back in so many slots. I think that probably wore off over the last 5 years as the returnee seasons weren't. But the moment that things picked up with returnees started to get calls, it set fire. And thankfully, I am in a place where I understood that that was not going to be me. And so that really allowed me to take a step back, and I wasn't in the mix. But I heard secondhand from a lot of people and a lot of my friends who were in the mix. So the first rumor goes out, the first round of calls go out in the first week, and it is like putting gasoline on a fire. And everyone was calling each other. No one's calling me. I'm like pretty open about the fact that I'm out of the loop there. So it's not me. I get to witness this. And it just turns people into crazy. Scarcity mindset. Um, the lines are blurred between, are people calling me because they want to be my friend? Are people calling me because they're pre-gaming? Are people in casting? Are they not in casting? It brings the game from the island into real life for people. And that really sucks in a lot of ways, I think, for people, because especially new people come home, they were on seasons, they did well, they didn't do well, and somebody from 46 is calling and somebody from 44 is calling, and they're acting like they want to be your friend, but really they're just, and maybe part of it is, it's always a blurred line, and this. Part of it is wanting human connection. Part of it is wanting to build friendships and community. But then there was always this underlying thing for me in the 30s of like, are people just calling me because they're wondering if I'm in casting and if I'm going to take their spot? And that proved to be true for me and for many, many people. And I think that for a lot of people was extra painful over the last year in casting.
Tell me about the 38 call. So you get home from 36. Is it right after you get home, or do you have a couple months to breathe and then they call back and they say, hey,
I
want to
had a
suit
couple
up
of
again?
months to breathe, but because I got back in July and my season didn't air until February, the calls came in between playing and airing.
Oh, and that's weird
So,
because that's not the case for most people. I mean, for the 48 people, if they got called in August, I guess that's the case. And even the
yes.
folks from 47.
Yeah.
How is that? How do you grapple with the call when you haven't even known how you're going to be
I
portrayed?
mean, you've said you've listened to Road to Reality.
Yes.
And so we talk about on Road to, if anyone hasn't listened yet, Road to Reality is a show where I talk to people who are on Survivor about the experience of being on Survivor before, during, and after. Not necessarily a bunch of game talk, although sometimes that comes up, but about being a human who was on Survivor and going through casting and reality TV. Um, to get the call, your question was, what's it like to get the call when your season hasn't aired yet?
Yes.
Like, you're in it. You're in the Survivor. Like, my body hasn't fully recovered yet. I have no idea what's gonna happen. I'm traveling around with people from my cast. I'm completely offline from the real world, and I am in Survivor mindset, and then here I am getting a call from casting again, and it just is really, keeping the delusional parts of myself really going. It's like you're feeding the drug. You're doing lots of hits of the Survivor drug when you're in casting before your first season has even aired yet.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. And I'm so intrigued on the folks who have now had like 20 years to think about it and to manifest over it. You've got Chrissy, who's got 9 years. You've got these people from 49, Kellen. They got back a week ago and they got back on the plane. They didn't clean the plane yet. They didn't do
Yeah.
the vacuum on the plane. It's
I think
not.
what we've realized, because that's happened to a few people, like Michaela, Aubrey, Zeke, right? There are a few people who have
Yeah,
played
yeah.
immediately. And I think it's all of them have publicly spoken about how screwed up that was and how hard it was for them physically and mentally. Um, I guess if you're gonna do it all, get it all done at once. But I don't know how deep the scars go. I'm sure it just depends. I mean, for the people who haven't seen themselves play the first time and then they're going out and doing it again, and then they have to go through. For me, the most traumatic part of Survivor was the post-Survivor experience. To have to do that twice after being out there twice, it's like I cannot express in words how unsettling and traumatic that would be for a person.
I mean, even if you go out early, speaking from experience, there is still a lot to process. And you would have to imagine the folks who are going back on this next season, they've done okay. Like they probably were not the first or second out. They have to experience that processing two different times. It's having two separate, and we use traumatic. Survivor is traumatic for many
Yes.
people. We use traumatic, like, two separate traumatic experiences within the span of 2
Mhm.
months is tough for anybody. And I do wonder how that'll manifest. Those people also, and I've said it now a couple times on this podcast, they always do well on that second season. They're never
Mm.
the first thought to go out, just because of, I guess, the egos of it all. Everybody wants to gun for each other, and there are extra votes that can be used as such. I think Zeke is the lowest placing back-to-back person at 10th place out of
Mm.
20, and then everybody is, fourth member or the jury or better, which is pretty good odds. But something that I think the meta has caught up, and I think there are people on the island now who know that, and that might be a reason why somebody gets sniped.
Yeah, I get that. I was gonna say my instinct when you're saying that is one of these two people is gonna be early to go, early boot this time. Um, it They're not gonna win. I would bet my life that neither of these
Yeah.
people are gonna win season 50. And honestly, for their mental health, I think the earlier they get out, the better. But what do I know? What do I know? I'm not a therapist. So it'll be interesting to see how they fit in with the whole group, especially since there's lots of this like old school contingency, and then all of the groups, but they will certainly be outcasts because even the 48 people will have been able to see their season, right? Yes.
Yes.
So they're the only two that have not seen themselves on the show. Uh, it's going to put them at a disadvantage this time around.
What is you play 36, Chrissy is 35. What is your relationship with Chrissy as it's airing or in the years after?
Yeah, so I didn't meet Chrissy until later, a year later. After both of our seasons have aired, we were at a fundraiser for Give Kids the World in Florida. I think everyone should go listen to her Road to Reality episode with me. She was the first episode, and it is a killer interview. If I do say, say so myself, like, you think you know Chrissy. I thought I knew Chrissy because I had watched her season. We were literally out on the island back to back seasons. We were in the thick of it together, and I learned so much about her life, about what she has gone and done, sneaking into Cuba, I think, if I remember correctly, all sorts of things going on in Chrissy's life. She has lived a life of adventure, and also like kind of a quote unquote traditional corporate actuary motherhood life. And so to see the span of Chrissy's experience in her life and what Survivor how it played in the midst of it, but Survivor is one amazing thing that Chrissy Hofbeck has done in her life. There are many. I think that's true for all of us in some ways, but hers are like literally literal, like big adventures. And so her insatiable desire for creating adventure, even in a like pretty stable life, is so fascinating to me. That dichotomy. My relationship with Chrissy has always been extremely friendly. I feel like I could call her if I needed something. I had to reach out to her when Road to Reality didn't exist yet. When I was she didn't know what it was about. And she used her very precious time to come and speak with me, to tell her story, be open to this community, to talk about her childhood, talk about growing up, everything. And so that is my experience of Chrissy: open, giving, kind, gracious, a good listener, checks in with me, is a kind person. So I have always had very positive experiences with Chrissy.
She is coming into season 50. And there are multiple people. Like, you have Aubrey, who has now become a mom. We have Angelina, who I think has also become a mom. But Chrissy has faced a unique set of health challenges in the past couple of years. I think since post COVID, maybe, so relatively recent.
Yeah.
How do you think that is going to shape her season 50 appearance? Not even strategically, just like from a story perspective. How do you think that plays for
Yeah.
her?
From a story perspective, so in her episode of Road to Reality, she talks a lot about how she used to live her life like a lot of us, and I still am guilty of this sometimes. Like, what's the next thing? Oh, once it's summertime, then X, or I can have to work these next few weeks, but on the next vacation, like kind of waiting for the next big thing. Literally going on Survivor as the next biggest thing in Chrissy's life. And what she realized while she was out there, I can totally relate to this, was being in the present moment and appreciating where you are and loving yourself in the midst of it. In the present moment is what life is all about. And so since Survivor was the first time that Chrissy kind of stopped skipping ahead constantly in her life, she was like, wait a second, the moment is now. I am winning these immunity challenges now. I am a badass now. I don't need to accomplish something else to arrive to a new place. Living is now in the present moment. And then that played into her life between 2017 when we played Survivor. She would have played and aired in 2017 to now. We're talking 8 years later. She's been living more in the present through her breast cancer diagnosis and recovery. Now she has really, 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 from my understanding, taken life for what it is right now and living experience wholly. And so I wonder if that presence going into the game, knowing she wants to stay present, keeping eyes wide open, appreciating the whole experience, will give her an opportunity to not be trying to play 1,000 steps ahead, not only strategically, but letting herself really appreciate the experience. And that might turn on the side of her that connects to other human beings in the present moment. And that may course correct naturally the lack of kind of social connection that we think she had in her first trip. So I think it all might perfectly come together for her here, starting out appreciating the present moment. And that is where you find other people, and that's where you build connections. And as some of you know, the most important thing to me is for when people go on Survivor, that they have an experience where they get to know themselves and to love themselves for however it goes, whether you're the first one out, whether you're the hero, whether you wish you would have done things differently. How can you love yourself even more? And with Chrissy starting out in the present moment, loving herself more, loving others more, and building out that full 360-degree experience with her eyes wide open.
Cherie has, I forget if it's Heroes versus Villains or Game Changers, but she has a confessional where she's like, I've been here before. Like, I've done this. I just want to have fun this time. And I think that is like so often not the perspective that people go into these all-star seasons with, where it then becomes like wanting to win, which I understand why. When you get close and you're, whatever, I understand that vengeance feels like there's like a derogatory connotation with it. But like there's this air of like it needs to work out, it needs to be done correctly. But I feel like, and granted, Cerie's both of those times didn't ultimately end in a win, but I think that air of like just taking it in, just being there and taking it in, because really odds are on one of these returning seasons, 20 out of 24 of the people are not just taking it in. And I feel like that gives you a leg up when there are people who are running 1,000 scenarios a minute. If you can be that, cool head in the room to be like, or there's no rooms on Survivor. Contrary to popular belief, it's all one room. It's outside. But if you're the cool head in the area that's like, let's just, one step at a time here, and having that perspective, I think is infinitely valuable over somebody who is just laser focused on first place. Because really, they say it in every Survivor podcast, but only one person is going to get
only one of 24 people in this
people.
Rapid crapshoot of a game. And just to sum up, I think what you just said, which is so key, the people who are coming in focused on the past, trying to correct that in a future outcome, are going to be behind the people who are experiencing it in the now. And correct me where I'm wrong, Chrissy is really set up because of her first time, because of how her life has been in the last 5 years, because of her perspective, to play the game hour by hour, which I think is what you have to do now, and not trying to correct the past with the future, just being in the now. And that is why she could really take this whole thing.
Well, I had a funny observation about Chrissy just a couple hours ago. I was, taking my notes as I do, and I went on her Instagram. And in her Instagram bio, if you're listening to this, go look at it. She can't change it. She's in Fiji. It says, runner-up is not my destiny, with the little sparkles. That's in there. It's Survivor 35 Castaway, runner-up is not my destiny. What do you think her destiny is, Kellen? What's the destiny on Survivor 50?
Oh, golly gee. In rewatching her first show and really thinking about her a lot, knowing I was going to come in and do this today, like I'm just really, really rooting for her to have a complete experience, whatever that means for her.
Wow, I like that a lot. That's that's all you can ask for. I mean, even my friends that are there, I want them to come home and they had a great time and it was fun. Again,
I hope that everyone gets along. And these are the things like after you play Survivor, right? It's like, I hope Ponderosa is good. If they're going on a pre-jury trip, I hope people are celebratory, like Jeff said they wanted it to be. I hope everybody is kind to each other and has a really good bonding experience, and that this is a way for people to heal through trip 2 instead of just reopen wounds and make new ones. But as you and I know, the chances of that
That's not gonna happen.
is not going to happen. But for Chrissy, I really hope it does.
Yeah. I'm going to show you, Kellen, the graphic for everybody who's playing Survivor 50. Anybody here that you have any kind of personal anecdote or relationship with other than Chrissy?
Um, so I'm trying to think about who I have even met in person. Angelina, I love Angelina. I was able to have brunch with her, and I have been a huge Angelina fan. It's really interesting because I feel like she and I, while our lives are very different, she's a mom, she's opening up a studio. Actually, I am using her Joy Babe studio. Sember Studios was the branding agency that did Joy Babe. They are now doing the Out Beyond, so we share a branding agency. My stuff hasn't come out yet. Don't judge Sember on my work. So Angelina and I are connected that way. I often play Blood on the Clock Tower with Christian. And let's see, have I met Emily, also Blood on the Clock Tower? I'm hoping there's a Blood on the Clock Tower alliance happening out there.
There certainly will be. From everything I've heard, that seems like it's
so.
locked in, those two.
No. Oh my gosh, Q. I have met Q 2 or 3 times, and every time we meet, he calls me Claire. And so I give him shit for that all the time. He's always like, Claire, why are you that? Actually, I went to play Traders, a really amazing home game. If anyone ever wants to play Traders, follow me on Instagram and message me there at @VKellenB, because I have access and I'm going to be on the production team for next season's Traders. So freaking cool.
This is a live game?
It's a live game.
I want to do that. Where is that?
Insane. It was in the Catoctin Mountains in Maryland, and Baltazar is the guy who runs it, and it was such a integrity run game, like so good. I had the time of my life. We can talk about it afterwards. But anyway, I went in to play Traders. This is why my hair turned pink, because I decided to go play Traders, this live game, as someone else, not as Kellen, who had played Survivor. And I used the name Claire. I told everyone my name was Claire, inspired by Q, because that's what he's like. You just look so much like a Claire. So I do know Q from that. I think Q is hilarious in person. It will be just I can see Q going out in every single place. And that's it. I will say there's a couple people, or just one specific person that isn't my cup of tea. And then most people I do not know. So
can I hear who's not your cup of tea?
You can hear after.
After Patreon. I'm kidding. It's not on Patreon.
Venmo me $1,000 and YouTube can know.
How did Claire do on the Traders?
So I was a trader starting from the beginning, and there were, oh my God, now I forget how many of us started. 20 or 22. There were 3 traders, and I made it to 6th as a trader.
That's great.
Yeah.
How much of your Survivor strategy was implemented in Traders? Is there anything you picked up there that
First of all, playing Traders is 1,000 times harder than playing Survivor.
That's what they're saying. Everybody's saying it.
Oh my God. I didn't know other people were saying it, but it is so hard. Like the level of stress that was in there. First of all, to be like pretending I'm someone else altogether. And just lying. Like, it is one thing to play Survivor. You don't have to lie about a bunch of stuff. When you are playing Traders, you're just always lying, right? Did I use any strategy? I mean, I think I'm a social person. I think I ask people about that. I think I was actually hindered a little bit in my ability to connect with people, because I do that so genuinely usually, and did while playing Survivor, that because I was lying about who I was, that just put me on edge. So I think that I had to hold back my number 1 skill for playing Survivor, which is true human connection.
This will be the first time in a long time that nobody on Survivor can lie about details about their life, because everybody knows each other. Whereas all these new era seasons, you got the lawyers who aren't actually lawyers. You got Sue, who's not, I don't know how, she said she was 45, I believe. Sue's not 45. Like, this is, clean slate for everybody. No, I guess the 49 people theoretically could lie, But why would they? I think that just handicaps them in a game that is not, going to go their way to begin with.
Yeah, probably. It would be a lot. I would think you wouldn't need to lie because you're already an outcast, I don't think there's any, like, job thing or age thing that's going to put you out of the group when you're the 49 people going in here.
Right. Is there anything, Kellen, that you want to tell people to check out other than Road to Reality?
Definitely listen to Road to Reality. I get such the people who take the time to listen to that really love it. So, I'm biased, but I think that it is worth a listen. Um, I am what I do for work is I am a career coach, although I have transitioned to mostly working with people who are running their own business or freelancers, artists, coaches themselves, people who are building a life outside of the system. And I love that work. You can check it out at theoutbeyond.com. And I'm at the Kellyn B on social media. I love to hear from people. No big announcement other than just really excited for all of this Survivor content that's coming out. I just did a Survivor like 25 top 25 moments recap. If you haven't watched that with Mike Bloom, I was with Rachel, who's a good friend of mine before Survivor. I knew Rachel before she got on the show. Remains a very, very good friend to this day. And Omer, who also somebody who I would have loved to see on 50. Omer, hilarious. Oh my God, hilarious
One of the
person.
best. How did you know Rachel Lamont?
Rachel and Lamont and I were in the same online poker league.
Really? Oh, that's so
Yes.
fun.
Yeah. So Rachel and I knew that she did all of the casting and everything. I didn't even see her casting video actually. I mean, I talked with her before before
You
casting and
got to.
before she played, certainly a lot. We did a lot of talking before, but she got on the show all on her own. And so Rachel's an amazing person, and keep an eye out for what she has coming up around the corner. Super cool stuff going on in her world as well. So that's my pitch. Come follow me on social media. Check out the Out Beyond if you're somebody who wants to work outside the traditional 9 to 5. That's where to go instead. I think that's it.
I have a friend of mine who just messaged me about the Out Beyond, and they are working with you, and they said so many nice things. So if you are
Oh,
a business owner, go to the Out Beyond.
yeah, yeah. I think I have a inkling on who that is. Yes,
Remains history.
yeah, no. I take confidentiality of my clients very seriously. Um, but yeah, it's really fun. I cannot believe that I get to do this work. Like this is my life to help people like take their skills, what they love to do, and they have this dream of like, hey, I love to do X, pottery, an executive recruiter, an accountant, a film, like a person who does film, an acupuncturist. And they're like, I love to do this thing. And I don't think I know how to build a business. And if I go build a business, that's going to compromise what I want to do because business, 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 business. And my desire is to help people realize that I do not believe that building your most successful life is hard. I actually believe that on the other side of the most easiest, most exciting, most curious things are where your success, financial success, like total life satisfaction lies. And so that is what I'm doing with people, including your friend. And so yeah, that's what I get to do every day is to help people decide like how to prioritize what they want to do and how to make money in a way that they love to get up every morning. And there's 3 years ago, I left private equity, and I cannot believe that I'm here. Feel so lucky to do it.
Oh my God. Well, go check out the Out Beyond. I want to start a business. Get me riled up to start a business. I'm in
Yeah,
Rob's business. I got to do my own thing. Thank you so much,
exactly.
everybody, for listening to this episode of the Survivor 50 Files, talking Chrissy Hofbeck. We will be back tomorrow for a new episode. Stay tuned. It'll be a good one. Thank you, everybody. Take care. Goodbye. Thank you to our friends at Manta Sleep for sponsoring this episode of the Survivor 50 Files. You've made it to the end of the podcast. You've been here long enough. Let me show you my sleep mask, the one that I use and I use every night. Here it is. I've worn this every night for the past couple years, minus the 4 nights that I spent on Survivor, the television show. And it sucks to get voted out of Survivor, but a little bit better when you know you're going back home to this. This is 100% light blackout for deeper sleep. You put this on, can't see anything. When I watched the first 2 episodes of Survivor, 45. I put this guy on. I don't have to relive it, which is great. It's adjustable for a personalized fit. You can see I have quite a big head. I don't want to show you the details of I've kind of worn out the elastic, but it's durable. This guy hasn't broke. I've worn it every night for the past couple of years, and it's zero pressure on your eyelids or eyelashes. I've converted so many people to getting this sleep mask when I wasn't doing this, and I want to convert you. Use promo code 50files. That's 50 FILES on the Manta Sleep website to get 10% off your order. That's 50files, 50 FILES. We'll see you soon.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.